So every January, I make these beautiful plans about all of the creative things that I'm going to do in the next year. And then suddenly it's October and I've barely touched any of them. Sound familiar? This last year, I've been experimenting with a different approach, planning for creativity in a way that works with my messy creative brain. It's helped me focus, but without the structure and deadlines marked in red ink and, a side dish of spiraling shame. So in this video, I'm going to share what's been working for me because I want you to be able to actually make the things that are in you to make. Let's get into it. If we're just meeting, I'm Janelle. I've been a freelance graphic designer for about 15 years now, and I've spent most of that time trying to figure out how to stay creative when creativity is also your job. But this video isn't just for professional creatives, it's for anyone who wants to build in more making into their life this year. Here's the thing I have found about most planning advice on the internet and in books and just everywhere. It is built for linear thinkers doing predictable work. You can plan a meeting, but you can't plan for inspiration and when that inspiration is going to strike. And when you try to force creativity into really rigid structures and systems and time blocks, it starts to feel like a chore. And if there's one thing I am really good at, it's talking myself out of doing chores. But I don't need to tell you that on the other hand, having no systems means that all of those non-urgent but good creative ideas just kinda never get done. You get to December and realize that you never started that painting or finished that project or worked on that new idea that you were really excited about in January. So here are some strategies that have actually helped me find the middle ground. Enough structure to actually make things happen, but loose enough that you don't just suck the joy out of the whole thing. The first thing that's helped me is to think in terms of creative seasons instead of detailed scheduling. I know a lot of people swear by time blocking, but when I tell myself that I'm going to work on my passion project between the hours of 2 and 3:45, suddenly every other thing feels more exciting and interesting to me by around 2:05. Instead of mapping out your year week by week, or trying to plan for creative work, whether it's part of your day job or not, like you would the rest of your work week, try thinking about the natural rhythms of your actual life. When have you historically had more creative energy? When do things get really chaotic with work or family stuff? When do you tend to get restless and need something new? You already know a lot about your life by looking at your past years and being honest about what those blocks look like for you and your actual life. I love these wall calendars that show the whole year in one glance instead of on different pages, so you can actually see what you've already got on the docket. It starts to be immediately clear where things might feel a little bit tight or where there are some open gaps in your schedule. You can pencil in trips or larger projects you're already working on, or any consistent commitments you know are going to be a part of your year. Seeing it all in one place helps you be more realistic about where your margins are and where you can carve out a little bit of space for extra creative work, or where you might need to give yourself a little bit of permission and grace and not try to tack on a whole bunch of extra stuff when you know there's a lot going on already. There's something cool about a physical calendar, but I've also built a digital version of this idea in Notion for myself so that I can map out my creative projects and see where the gaps are, along with the rest of my planning for the year. And then I can keep going back to it when I know that I've added on a new trip or committed to a client project. It starts to be really clear where the spaces are that I can be a little bit more intentional about adding in my own work. For creative entrepreneurs or freelancers, it might help you recognize that Q4 is always going to be full of a lot of client work. So trying to pressure yourself to tack on that personal project is just not a healthy idea. Or knowing that summer is going to be a little slower, so you have more margins to tackle something bigger. For hobbyist creatives, it might help you realize that weekend evenings are the perfect time to bring in a lot of cozy creative hobbies, but by the time you get to spring, every weekend is full of commitments. Just seeing that laid out helps you prioritize your time more and also give yourself some grace. Maybe you could even identify a long weekend that would be perfect for a creative staycation with intention, or actually get to take yourself on a little creative retreat where you work on a bigger project somewhere. That would be awesome. And looking at your year ahead of time helps you actually be able to do that when there's space. The point is to loosely assign creative time by season instead of trying to block out every week consistently. Before we even get into what we're going to make, thinking more creatively about when we have space means less guilt about your actual life taking over and being more intentional about grabbing the pockets of time when they pop up. This also means you can leave space for projects you don't even know about yet. Some of my best creative work has come from things that pop up in the middle of the year that I couldn't have planned for in January. But knowing when I have pockets of creative time means that I can fit that in And I've kind of pre-blocked out for myself whatever I'm excited about at the time. Planning by seasons gives you direction, but without the suffocating pressure of a detailed timeline. Number 2, build yourself a creative menu. This one has been a game changer for me this year. I've seen a version on TikTok where people do a dopamine menu of things that are just exciting or enjoyable for them, but I love the idea of focusing it on the creative projects that you want to remember to do. One of my big goals this last year was to devote more time for silly hobbies that had nothing to do with my creative work, but I realized that one of the big barriers was that when I actually had time, I would always forget what it was I wanted to do. You have a free Saturday afternoon and you think, I should do something creative, but you can't remember what supplies you have on hand and what projects you had pinned and what YouTube tutorial you had seen and thought, oh yeah, I should come back to that later. And what I have learned is if that paralysis takes more than 5 minutes, you are going to fill that time with something else. Netflix is calling and that siren song is loud. So, like most good things in my life, I turned to Notion and I built myself a creative menu and I organized it by time blocks. So I could always remember the things that I wanted to do if I only had a half an hour, or things that would take an hour or two, or the larger projects that if I had a whole afternoon, I knew I wanted to dive into. And that way, no matter what time I had available, I could always remember where I was. And in each of those pages, I could put any links or tutorials or remind myself where I had left off on the project so that I could jump right in and not spend all of that time just winding myself back up. It made a huge difference. This could be like mine on whatever planning system you use, or on your notes app, or on a physical journal or planner, whatever works for your brain. But the point is to build a creative parking lot so that you have one place where ideas go whenever they pop up, so you can remember them later when you actually have the time to work on stuff. It seems like a small thing, but for some reason, that friction jump is a really big difference between actually using your pockets of time in a way that is creative and fun versus just kind of passively scrolling. Number 3 is to make creativity visible. The other thing that has made a huge difference for me this year was to make all of my ongoing creative projects more physically visible and accessible to where I'm actually hanging out and working. Again, I get that sounds like an obvious thing, but sometimes it's really easy to forget about doing stuff because it's not out. I'm lucky enough to have a really great studio space in my house, but it's 3 floors away from my living room, which means on a Saturday when I'm hanging out and I could be doing something creative, that's just too many flights of stairs between me and my art supplies. And about halfway through the year, I realized I was not actually making art regularly because my stuff was too far away from me. I bought myself a little cart and I put all of my ongoing little creative hobby projects right next to my couch. So then when I'm hanging out with my husband watching a movie, I could remember the little embroidery project I was working on because it was right there. And anything that you can do to make your projects physically visible and in reach means you'll actually make them more of a habit on your regular hangout times and rest periods instead of waiting for these giant special blocks of time. I know my next piece of advice is easier said than done, but it is to protect your creative time, but make it small. You've probably heard the advice to block out creative time like you're scheduling a meeting with someone else. And yeah, that's great advice. But here's the reframe that has worked for my brain. You don't need to make it giant 4-hour blocks to justify that time. Even 20 minutes of protected creative time, more consistently built into your rhythms, is so much more valuable than the random marathon session you're able to eke out every month and a half. The ritual really matters more than the duration, and that's hard for my brain to accept. But it has made a big difference for me. If you wait until you have a magical free afternoon to be creative, you might be waiting a really long time. But if you can build in those little pockets of time in your actual life, it means that the habit becomes a part of your rhythms and becomes a part of who you are more consistently. So maybe it's Tuesdays from 7 to 8, or the mornings before everyone else wakes up, or your lunch break like twice a week. Whatever you can actually protect consistently, even if it's an ideal week and sometimes you have to let it go. Sometimes this can be easier to commit to with another person. If you can find another friend who also wants to work on something creative, you can actually block out an appointment with that person. You're going to do a Zoom date every Tuesday night. You're going to hang out and each work on your project that you want to work on. So you can give it more priority because it is with another person, but you're also just body doubling the thing that you want to do. It's like a fun version of co-working. For a few years, I was part of a female entrepreneur cohort that met every couple of weeks. And one of the women in my group explained the idea of this blocked out time to her young kids as mom's class time. They understood the idea better because it was something they could relate to. And it helped her preserve the space more and helped her family support her in blocking out that time because it was something they could get their head around. Whatever you can do to make that space sacred and invite the people in your life to support you in that, the easier this will be. The goal is not to create masterpieces in that time. It's just to keep that creative muscle active so that you don't have to start from scratch every time and retrain yourself when you go to sit down to work. Number 5, schedule the refill, not just the output. This is something I talk about a lot on this channel, but it's a big thing that I think most creatives forget to be intentional about, myself included. We plan what we want to make, but we forget to plan for the things that will fill us back up and inspire us creatively and give us more things to ping off of for new projects. You're never going to know what your next big inspiration is going to be, but the more you can put yourself in places that are inspiring to you, the easier it is for those things to come. I guess that sounds really obvious, but it's really easy to forget in your life, and it's something I have to continually remind myself to make space for. What fills your creative well is going to be really personal to you. For me, it's wandering museums, browsing through art books, cooking new dishes, watching documentaries and podcasts and things about the creative experiences of other people. I can pretty much predict that if I go to a museum or watch a piece of theater, I'm going to walk away with a new creative inspiration because that's the way my brain works. For you, it might mean getting out in nature or wandering a craft store or just going on a walk where you notice everything. Whatever that looks like for you, blocking out the time and the spaces to put yourself in the place that is going to inspire you is vitally important. We have to put those things on a calendar like it's a real commitment, not just a reward for things you've already done. Julia Cameron talks about this a lot in The Artist Way, about how important it is to take artist dates and really block out time to feed your creative well. I'm very much not perfect about that practice, but I'm really trying to make it something that I'm more intentional about in my rhythm. What I definitely do know is that if you only output instead of ever inputting, you will burn out creatively. And then no matter how much you beautifully plan your time, you won't have anything left in you to make. And it's really a depressing cycle. Number 6 is to work to find your people. Building community into your creative process makes it so much easier to prioritize that creativity. There is just something magical about having people tracking with you creatively. It means you have someone to keep you accountable when you are a little bit off track and make you actually remember to do the thing because someone's checking up on you. Or just knowing you have someone that you can text when you have a fresh idea to bounce something off of. It really makes a huge difference in keeping this brain muscle active for you. This could look like a lot of different things depending on the season of life you're in and how you're wired. Maybe you designate an official creative accountability buddy. You find one friend who is also working on something creative, even if it's not the same thing that you are. And you set up a rhythm for how you're going to check in with each other. You have a text thread or you have a Zoom date where you hang out together and work on stuff like co-working. Whatever it looks like, having a person that has pre-authorized you to be able to ramble about the things you're thinking about gives a lot of permission and takes a lot of the guilt out of feeling like you're bothering the people around you with any creative thought you have. It really changes the game, at least for me, to know that someone has said, hey, I want to track this creative thing with you. It's really life-giving. Or on the other end, maybe you sign up for some kind of a class. It could be online or in person, but having other people who are also working on the same thing helps you stay focused in a way that solo work and just kind of learning on your own often doesn't. Or maybe you find an accountability group or co-working or a critique group. It could be online or in person, but just having a group of peers who are all in the same kind of space as you is a real gift, and it really does change the game for how much you show up for your thing. I think it's easy to fall into the trap of feeling like creativity is a very solitary thing, and sometimes it can be, but building in a creative community makes it sustainable. You have people to celebrate with, or commiserate with when it's not working, or just people who are expecting to see your progress. It means that you're motivated to make progress. Finally, give yourself permission to abandon. Part of planning is giving yourself permission to acknowledge when things aren't working. You have full freedom to DNF something that is not life-giving. Not every project needs to be finished for it to have been worthwhile, and not every idea needs a full year of commitment. Sometimes you start something and you realize it's just not going the way you thought it would, or you've already learned what you needed to from it, or it's just not exciting to you anymore. And that's fine. And I feel like it's easy to forget that and feel like we have to finish because I've started this thing, and if I drop it, I'm a failed creative or something. I am officially giving you permission. Creative planning should include built-in exit ramps. The goal is to stay alive and engaged, and sometimes that means letting go of the things that just aren't working for you anymore to make space for new ideas to pop up. Sometimes I'll look back at my yearly review process and I'll see all of the creative projects and ideas that I had had at the beginning of the year. Some of them I finished, some of them I didn't quite do and I feel badly about them, and sometimes I realize, oh, I had this idea at the beginning of the year, but I actually took a hard left, and then this became this thing over here that was way better. And I think starting out with a creative plan that you hold loosely and give a lot of room for it to adjust as your life adjusts is the best way that we can actually stay creative and focused, but also free to let our creativity take the lead, which is really great. I think the best thing about being intentional about planning your creative year now is that you can hold those ideas loosely and leave a lot of room for where the surprises are going to come as you play it out. That's really exciting, and it takes the guilt out of that process. So that's what's been working for me. Planning for seasons instead of rigid schedules, making myself a creative menu so I'm not starting from zero every time, making my projects more visible so I actually remember to do them, protecting small pockets of time more consistently, scheduling in those input spaces instead of just output, continuing to try to find people to track with me, and giving myself permission to change my mind. I really hope some of this helps you actually make the things that you keep saying you want to make. This is the second video in my little mini-series about helping you get creatively set up for the new year. So if you've missed it, go watch the first one where I go over 7 questions to ask yourself before you start planning. I'll see you there.